Thank you, Ishmael. I'm removing the mask not because it mustn't be worn, but as my commitment to my sister who has a hearing challenge, and all those South Africans who have got hearing challenges, they need to also read my lips so that they can follow what we are saying. Let me greet our Deputy Minister, Putimanamela, Director General, Gwebunkunhla Qonde, and all our DDGs who have joined us here. Let me also welcome the Administrator of NSFAS, Dr. Randall Carlson, all members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody at home or wherever you are following on this update. COVID-19 has disrupted the 2020 academic year. But as we committed in our 30th of April media briefing, we've been working hard during this month of May towards saving the academic year while saving lives. The pandemic has presented all of us with a set of unprecedented challenges, and we've been intensely engaging with all our stakeholders to save the 2020 academic year while simultaneously continuing to focus on the transformation and expansion of opportunities in the post-school education and training system. I would like to express my gratitude to the exemplary leadership provided by our President, Cyril Ramaphosa, and my colleagues in the National Command Council and Cabinet in guiding our work at this difficult time. I also remain humbled by the commitment of all the members of the ministerial task team led by our Deputy Minister Putimanamela, comprising of the South African College Principals Organization, Universities South Africa representing the Vice Chancellors, the various trade unions who are organizing in our sector, as well as the South African Students' Union and representatives from the TVET College students. The task team has been playing an important role in finding creative and equitable solutions in the interest of all our students and staff in our sector. I also would like to acknowledge the role played by the leadership of the various trade unions organizing in our sector, especially our labor unions represented by NEHAU, SATU, the Democratic Teachers Union, NTEU, the Public Service Association, SAPTU, and NAPTOSA, as we collectively seek solutions to deal with this pandemic. In our recent engagement with the unions, they raised a number of important issues and suggestions, including how they think health and safety measures need to be strengthened in all of our institutions. Arising out of this engagement, we've decided to help convene a consultative meeting specifically between USAF, SACPO, and union representatives organizing in the sector shortly. We are also calling on all our post-school education and training institutions to ensure full consultation with student and staff stakeholder bodies into university and college COVID-19 task teams to provide all necessary safeguards on managing risks and ensuring safe resumption of activities. We furthermore call on all councils to ensure that this is indeed put into place, including a matter that the unions rightly raised, the establishment of workplace occupational health and safety committees. I would like to reiterate that our sector's response to COVID-19 is guided by the measures announced by the President as decided upon by Cabinet and the National Command Council. Our sector has adopted the theme Save the academic year, save lives. Let me start by referring to what NSFAS is doing at the moment. During the period of the lockdown, NSFAS remained fully operational and continued to disperse allowances to all NSFAS beneficiaries. We wish to underline this. All NSFAS beneficiaries are receiving their allowances as if they were in institutions. I'm also pleased to indicate that NSFAS has concluded an agreement with the South African Revenue Service to provide NSFAS access to latest tax data in order to validate household income of NSFAS applicants. NSFAS will now also be able to include other income, such as investment and rental income, in its applications assessment. This will greatly assist towards finalization of outstanding appeals through reliable sources of information. Our initial analysis shows that more than 125,000 new students in 2020 come from households in the informal sector. Our partnership with the Department of Social Development saw a dramatic improvement in approvals for social welfare beneficiaries, and more than 240,000 new entrants were approved for funding by NSFAS. Taken together, indeed, NSFAS is truly providing for the most vulnerable and the poor members of our society by opening up gateways out of poverty. The shift to provide for learning materials for NSFAS students to include digital devices will not only address technology-enabled pedagogy over the lockdown period, but will truly move South African education into the modern era, offering access to wider resources and teaching materials. This bold step will also be extended to TVET students, for whom access to technology will improve their skills fit for a modern economy. Ngamanye amazwi, ama-laptop lawa, ama-computer, sizowanika bonke abafundi njengoba besishilo, abaxhaswa isikhwama lesi sika-NSFAS. Akuzukuba abafundi basemanyuvesi kuphela. Okokuqala ngqana abafundi basemakolishi bazothola lama-computer ukuze kwazi ukuthi umsebenzi wabo wenzeke kangcono. Recently, the NSFAS administrator assisted 70 medical students at the Walter Sisulu University to obtain funding from the Health and Welfare SETA, students who entered medical studies following a NSFAS-funded science degree. During this lockdown period, we have also been providing stipends to all our SETA learnerships. We have also cleared the misunderstanding that existed at the beginning of the lockdown, where some SETAs stopped the payments, and this has been corrected. On universities, all our public universities, 26 of them, have developed detailed strategies for remote, multimodal teaching and learning during the period of the current lockdown, for implementation as from the beginning of June, as per our previous commitments. So work is continuing, and there is significant progress in this regard. As I have indicated before, institutions have developed now their detailed institutional plans, as each institution is unique and we cannot follow a one-size-fits-all approach. And we have encouraged our institutions to continue communicating with their students. Each institution has committed to ensuring that all students are given a fair opportunity to complete the academic year 2020. We are working closely with all universities to ensure the implementation of this commitment. University teaching, learning assessment, and campus readiness plans have been submitted to the department, along with a detailed costing of the additional funding required to implement them. In other words, last time we said we were going to do this. Now we've done this. We have got all the plans by the institutions. We are just finalizing costing so that we are ready for teaching plans to be implemented as from the 1st of June. Nibuye ngiphe namanzi. Abaphethe amanzi. What we are doing as the Department of Higher Education and Training, we are now reviewing these plans in order to urgently finalize the reprioritization of earmarked funding to support the implementation of teaching and learning plans by 1st June. Higher Health, which is our organization that was initiated by our institutions to look after the health needs of staff and students, is assisting with the review of the campus readiness component of the plans, which will assist to ensure that adequate COVID-19 health and safety standards are put into place across our system. And they will, after I finish speaking here, provide a short presentation and an update for the benefit of everyone as to what they are doing now to make our institutions ready to receive students. The funding that will be reprioritized will be approved as a special COVID-19 responsiveness grant. Now, on devices for NSFAS and Funza Lushaka University students, we acknowledge that the cost of connectivity remains a huge barrier for students who want to use the digital learning mode as part of our multimodal and remote learning. I want to thank the officials in my Department of Higher Education and Training, my colleagues and officials in the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, as well as the electronic network providers, including the mobile network operators, that have already zero-rated educational content sites of our public universities, TVET, community education and training colleges, including agricultural and nursing colleges. What does this mean? It means that access to websites from all of our institutions is essentially free. That is what zero rating means. That it's not, we are not going to use your data to be able to access these zero rated sites. You're not going to be charged. This is a very important. It's a huge step. It is a huge step forward in terms of effective collaboration between the department and the telecommunications sector. The next step is to make education data bundles available to all NSFAS students in universities and TVET colleges that they can use to pay for additional contents that is not covered through zero rating. So in addition to zero rating, I'm pleased to announce that we have successfully negotiated with all mobile network operators very favorable rates for our NSFAS students, including the Funza Lushaka students who will receive 10 gigabytes daytime and 20 gigabytes nighttime for 3 months starting from the 1st of June till end of August as subsidized by government, which means it's free for them. In weeks to come, we will give detailed information on how to access these offers. While we acknowledge that students who fall within the so-called missing middle category, as well as students in private institutions, also need support in accessing data for their online learning, as many of them also come from homes that are hardest hit by the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Unfortunately, government is currently not in a position to subsidize them. We, however, appeal to the mobile operators to work with institutions to also offer affordable packages to such students. I am, however, working towards establishment on an affordable higher education loan scheme, which will have to involve the private sector to help missing middle students. I want to repeat what I said in my previous statement that NSFAS and the Funza Lushaka students must ensure that they register their cell phone numbers with their respective institutions. We advise that during this period they must also not change their SIM cards so as to enable network operators through their institutions to load data to their devices. I just want to emphasize that this data that needy students will receive must be used for dedicated online educational platforms for teaching and learning as approved by institutions. And I want to emphasize that. I said it last time. Don't use this data for wrong things. And I've gotten many responses on my Facebook indicating that many, if not most, of our students know exactly what I mean when I say don't use this data for wrong things. It's for you, it's to help you, to enable you to participate and engage in your studies. I therefore would like to acknowledge and thank all the network operators, MTN, Telkom, Vodacom, and Cell C, who have been working with us to ensure that we deliver on this important intervention. We have also made free digital content available specifically to our TVET college students through our Department of Higher Education and Training website, the National Open Learning System of our department, institutional website, and other sites where students can find digital materials which will assist them in their learning and preparation for exams. I therefore call upon all our TVET students to visit these sites and see for themselves the myriad of content available to assist them. Universities will also be delivering paper-based teaching and learning materials to students who do not have the resources to engage electronically or online. Some have already started doing this, but as in terms of our target, this will increase as from the beginning of June. The physical delivery of learning materials is one aspect of our multimodal approach that many of our universities are implementing. Ngiyabonga sezafika manje. Cheers kulo ndawo ye data. Now, the implementation of this intervention of physical delivery of materials depends on each university's assessment of the number of students that require this kind of support. As we try to find better ways to implement effective multimodal augmented remote learning systems, we are considering the use of space science and Earth observation technologies through our Department of Science and Innovation and platforms in support of our plans to reach to vulnerable students. My Department of Science and Innovation, in conjunction with the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, CENTEC, and the South African National Space Agency, is currently looking at a long-term solution to supporting the digital transmission needs for the national education system through the launch of a locally produced communications satellite. The Center for Scientific and Industrial Research, the CSIR, also falling within the Department of Science and Innovation, is also completing the task of establishing a geospatial planning map, identifying the location and distribution of learning and co-learning sites in all the districts of South Africa to enable us to support students in the period before full return to campuses. As stated in our last briefing, government is committed to ensure that all NSFAS students have access to an appropriate device to support their online learning and to ensure that no student is left behind. I want to say that some universities have already issued their students with laptops, including NSFAS beneficiaries. Some as part of their normal policies, others as a response to COVID-19. So this has started already. A lot of work then had to be undertaken to quantify the exact number and location of the students who still need to be issued with devices. That work has now been completed, and procurement will commence as soon as the approval of the Minister of Finance is received, which we are expecting anytime from now. Now, on the risk-adjusted strategy for the post-school education and training sector, the PSET sector is committed to resume academic activities in line with the National Risk-Adjusted Strategy. This includes putting remote learning system in place, as well as planning the gradual return to various campuses during various phases of the risk-adjusted strategy. Our ministry will publish national directives on the broad parameters and conditions under which each institution must plan for the controlled resumption of all forms and levels of academic activity to complete the 2020 academic year. Now, let's start with level 4 of the risk-adjusted strategy, which the whole country is in as we speak right now. Under level 4, we allowed for the controlled return of final year students in programs requiring clinical training, starting with medicine, MPCHB, and the phasing in of all other programs such as nursing, dental, veterinary science, and so on. Medical students have been returning to clinical training platforms from the 11th of May, and either final year students in other programs requiring clinical training will begin returning as from the 1st of June 2020. So this is the first level of priority of students to return. All other students are supported through remote, multimodal teaching, learning, and assessment until they can return to campus. That's what we are doing now under level 4, which we are in. Now, level 3. Under level 3, which has not yet been announced, but when this level gets announced, we are going to allow a maximum of 33% of the student population to return to campuses, delivery sites, and residences on condition that they can be safely accommodated and supported in line with the health and safety protocols as directed by the Department of Health and indeed our department as well, where appropriate. This will include the following cohorts or group of students who will form part of this 33%. It will be all groups that have already returned during level 4, as I have outlined. But then also we will then prioritize students in the final year of their programs who are on a path to graduating if they finish their 2020 academic year completely. Also, amongst this group, the first 33% will be final year students who require access to laboratories, technical equipment, data, connectivity, and access to residence and private accommodation will also be allowed to return to be part of this first 33% at level 3. Students in all years of study will also be allowed to return if they require clinical training in their programs, provided that the clinical training platforms have sufficient space and can accommodate them while adhering to the safety protocols, especially physical distance and maintenance of personal hygiene. The other group of students that we will allow under level 3 to go back as part of this 33% will be postgraduate students who require laboratory equipment and other technical equipment to undertake their studies. In addition to the above, institutions may also consider selected return of other categories of students to residencies who may face extreme difficulties in their home learning environments, provided that the above categories are prioritized and all safety and logistical requirements are met. When a district moves to level 3 of the strategy, then the reintegration of the next group of students to return to campuses located in that district will take place. So, for example, if in a particular district, level 3 is announced to begin on the 1st of June 2020, then institutions where campuses are located in that district will recall students in line with the following criteria to start their contact tuition 2 to 3 weeks after the announcement, depending on readiness and capacity of each institution. In other words, if by 1st of June there is an announcement that we are moving either in the whole country or parts of the country to level 3, we will then start 2 to 3 weeks after that announcement to have the first 33% of the students to return, not all the students. Cela ukuyichaza lento. Uma ngabe kuukuthi isimo siya ngokuba ngconywana, uhulumeni abesethi siyasuka kuleli zinga okuthiwa ulevel 4 siye ezingeni elingconywana ulevel 3, sesingakwazi ukuthi kube khona abafundi basemanyuvesi esithi sebengaqala ukuthi babuyele emanyuvesi kodwa abazukuba ngaphezulu kwabafundi koyedwa wabathathu 33%. Ngifuna ukuthi nabazali emakhaya bayizwe kahle lento. Akuyena uhomlo wokuthi hayi ke kosho ukuthi ke sekuphindela wonke umuntu emuva ngoba esikoleni ngoba uma sike sakwenza lokho siyobe sidala ingozi enkulu ukuthi kulahleke impilo zabafundi nabasebenzi nabafundisi balezi indawo zethu. Ngisho lento ngoba ngiyazi kunabafundi asebethi nje hayi namhlanje uNzimande sifuna nje akhuluma into eyodwa. Sibuyelani sonke home asizusebenza kanjalo ngoba impilo zabantu lezi esibhekene nazo. So uhulumeni sinomsebenzi omkhulu ukuthi sivikele impilo zabantu. Kufanele abantu abafundi babuyele ngalendlela ukuthi sizokwazi ukwenza zonke izinto zokuthi bavikelekile baphephile. Ingakho sithi nakubaholi babafundi msana ukugcina ngokuthi nizothi kuthina abafundi bafuna ukubuya. Uma umholi hambe uyobatshela labo bafundi bonke abafuna ukubuya ukuthi anikwazi ukubuya nonke. Ukuba umholi kusho lokho awuthathi yonke into oyishiwo umuntu ngoba naku umlandeli wakho. Kufanele abanye ubabonise ikakhulukazi wena uma umholi unolwazi ngoba sikwazi ukuhlala nawe phansi la kule sasigungu esiholwa usekela lethu uminister uBhuti Manamela la kuxoxwa khona ngalezi zinto. Ngithi angigcizelele lento ngoba lento yokuthi kuvele kujaha ukubuya nje abantu bazicabangele bona ayizukusiza ayivumelekile futhi emthethweni. We know, all of us, that a lockdown is not nice. But a lockdown is not made to punish people. It's to save lives. We therefore urge everybody to abide by this. Now, if then level 3, for argument's sake, were to be announced to begin on the 15th of June, then students would be recalled to start 2 to 3 weeks thereafter. Kusho ukuthi ekupheleni kwa June, end of June or beginning of July. In other words, a period of 2 to 3 weeks will be given in order to allow students to travel and also in order to ensure that our campuses are ready. Higher Health is going to be giving their own briefing after me, which will be clear, will make it clear to everyone what kinds of preparedness are we at and what are the things we need to do in order to ensure that all our institutions are safe places for return by students and staff. I will publish directions in terms of the Disaster Management Act to permit such travel. Institutions will issue permits to identified students to allow for their travel. It is critical that we adhere to these criteria to ensure that campuses are ready for students to safely return and the effective health screening, cleaning protocols are in place to keep everyone safe. All other students who are not part of the initial 33% will be supported through remote multimodal teaching and learning assessment until their turn comes to go to campus. It is recognized that some institutions may identify other groups of students in line with their particular context. However, any deviation from this criteria must be approved by my department and must fall within the maximum of 33% of the student population that will return first once level 3 is announced, hopefully by the president. Now let's move to level 2. When a district moves to level 2 in future of the strategy, then the reintegration of the next group of students to return to contact tuition on campuses located in that district will take place according to the following criteria. Once again, a 2 to 3 week period will be given to allow students to travel back to campuses and for institutions to ensure that the campuses are effectively prepared for the reintegration. Why, by the way, do we say 2 to 3 weeks? We are saying 2 to 3 weeks because it will depend on the capacity of the institutions. Some institutions will be able to do it in 2 weeks, but others may need a week more to be able to adequately prepare because our institutions are not the same. So once each new level 2 in this instance is announced, then we will allow a further 33%, which means now it will be in total 66% of the student population will return to campus for teaching, learning, and assessment in line with the following criteria. It will include all groups that are already returned, students in all years of study who require laboratory and technical equipment to complete the academic year. Under level 3, it will not be all students who require laboratory. It will be final year students, as well as final year students who require the laboratories and other things. Then level 2, it will be everyone who will then be part, who requires a laboratory and technical equipment to complete the academic year. And we really plead for cooperation here. If wenza political science, noma wenza sociology, awudingi laboratory ngani zakwethu. Asizukuprioritize uma sisathatha kancane. Usengakwazi ukuhlala ekhaya, ufunda incwadi yakho ngaleyo ndlela oyifunda ngayo. Ngoba senzelani ukuphepha. Also, as part of level 2, we will then return students in all years of study who require practical placements, experiential learning, workplace-based learning to complete the academic year. And also, level 2 then will see the return of first-year students in all undergraduate programs. In other words, we'll then be prioritizing now to say under level 2, all first-year students, undergraduate, will have to go back. By the way, we will be publicizing this in our website and in other media so that people can see exactly how we are going. Now, we can't say when then, which month will level 2 be. It will depend on when the president announces move to level 2. And in those districts that will move to level 2, then we will follow this guideline, that we can then be able to have 66%. And it will happen 2 to 3 weeks after that announcement to allow our institutions to get ready. Because our goal is to save lives. Now, institutions again under level 2 may also consider a selected return, provided it doesn't go beyond the 66% of other categories of students to residencies who may face extreme difficulties of one form or the other. Level 1, we will do as I have outlined for other levels. A 2 to 3 week period after its announcements will be needed to then prepare the campuses so that 2 to 3 weeks thereafter, staff or students, they actually return. And it is expected that then under level 1, only under level 1, will 100% of the students be back to campuses. And we are therefore going to require the strictest enforcement of physical distancing and health protocols. I will be publishing all this, as I have said, in the Government Gazette, DG, am I right? Correct. So that people know that this is the law. These are regulations also that require to be respected. We urge everyone to cooperate in the same way as our representatives have been cooperating in the task team the ministerial task team led by our Deputy Minister. As reported in our previous statement, we are facilitating the training of almost 18,000 frontline health workers, including leadership and membership of trade unions and shop stewards on dealing with COVID-19. I'm also pleased to report that we have already signed a memorandum of agreement between the Health and Welfare SETA and the VITS Health Consortium, and training will resume soon. Now, let me deal with the issue of return to the residences. Within the national guidelines to be published by the department, plans for the return of students to residences will be determined, this is all universities by the way, at institutional level in line with numbers that can be accommodated to enable physical distancing, the handling of communal spaces, hygiene requirements, and dining hall arrangements. Students identified to reintegrate into campuses may include specific groups of students who are living with disabilities, who are not able to access connectivity where they live, or are living in circumstances where studying is difficult. These groups of students for residencies will be part of initially the 33% and later the 66%. But of course, there may be a slight difference between students who are returning for lectures or contact lectures and those who are returning to residencies. But it must all be within the maximum guidelines or numbers that are actually allowed. In other words, in terms of the phase-in plans, the maximum percentage per residence identified for the level 3 is 33%, level 2 is 66%, must be adhered to, and all health and safety protocols must be in place. Students who live in private rented accommodation close to campuses may also return, provided physical distancing arrangements are in place. And we are indeed engaging with private providers of student residences on these matters as well, so that they are also able to adhere to these, because this is national law. This is in line with national regulations that as we seek to save the academic year, our priority is to save lives. So that was on universities. On TVET colleges, for TVET colleges, a tentative academic calendar has been drawn up pending any new announcements on the different levels of the lockdown by the President. In terms of the tentative calendar, the following return dates apply. Again, we will give this, we'll publicize this and publish it. Now, unnated trimester engineering students at TVET colleges, N6 and N3, they are to return on the 10th of June, N5 and N2 on the 15th of June, N4 and N1 on the 22nd of June. Now, let me say this. Again, all this will be guided by the National Command Council and the epidemiology of the disease. If anything changes for the worse, we will have to change these plans because the priority is to save lives, even the ones I was announcing about the universities. We are assuming that as we move to lower levels or higher levels, depending on how you describe this, we will be able to do these things. But if in a particular district the situation gets worse and requires different action, we will have to fall in line with our action, including reversal of opening up for students. Even in the worst case scenario, asking the students to go back again. We must be absolutely clear about that, and we will be guided by science and be guided by the President and the National Command Council. Now, nated semester students at TVET colleges doing business studies, N6 of those will return on the 25th of June as per our plans now, N5 on the 29th of June, N4 on the 6th of July. NCV students, Level 4 will return on the 13th of July, Level 3 on the 20th of July, Level 2 on the 27th of July. A campus-based approach will be applied where colleges are affected by different lockdown levels. Campuses located in districts that remain in lockdown level 4 will remain closed, and students will be supported using multimodal remote learning approaches. In other words, we are not opening under level 4 except for those clinical training students. Nobody else. So, if there is move to level 3, we will do as you have said. But for level 4, we are not going to open institutions for those districts that will remain under level 4. So as then announcements are made about possible changes to levels of alertness, you will have to compare that against what we say here. Now, those who will remain at level 4, those colleges will therefore develop a detailed remote learning support plan and share it with students as well as post it on the college website. Several colleges have already developed learning materials both for TV and radio broadcasts, which are shared through our departmental website. These initiatives will continue beyond the return of students to campuses. Furthermore, all students who will not have returned to campuses in June and July will also be supported remotely until they return to campus according to the phase-in process. Colleges are using textbooks, e-guides, past question papers, and uploaded YouTube videos to assist students. These are supported through bulk text messages from colleges and WhatsApp groups set up by lecturers. Let's emphasize this. You can see that what we are trying to do as government is to save the academic year whilst ensuring we save lives. We call upon everyone to also be part of this journey. No one must opportunistically or in a populist way try and recklessly want to move outside of these parameters. No one has called for this virus to be with us. No one. Not government, not Nzimande, not anyone. Abahamba isonto ke bona bangayichaza kangcono ukuthi ifike kanjani le virus. But none of us have called this virus. We therefore need to work together and not to act as if we are heroes and heroines who are going to defeat this virus by actually going against these carefully thought out prescripts and arrangements that we are making. This is a period where, by the way, all of us are tested, especially those who are in leadership position. Are we real leaders or we are manga leaders? By actually working towards observing this. On community education and training colleges, it is important to state upfront the community education college system is severely constrained in respect of infrastructure and uses mainly schools' infrastructure after hours. Again, this is what in the past we used to call adult basic education and training centers. It is for that reason that the department has taken a conscious decision that while we are building the infrastructure capacity of the system, for now its academic programs must be aligned to that of the Department of Basic Education, the schools. Therefore, as part of the community education and training college system, preparation for the return of students and staff to colleges and community learning centers, the department continues to engage with a variety of stakeholders, including labor and churches, to strengthen the capacity of the system. Guided by the principle to save lives and the academic year, these community colleges will spend the rest of May 2020 preparing the central offices and the learning centers to be ready for safe return of staff and students, subject to readiness of the colleges and center. By the way, any college or center that is not ready, we're not opening it. That's our commitment. Because we can't risk people's lives. Subject to readiness, the following are the proposed dates for the return of different categories of staff to their workstations in these colleges. 25th of May 2020 would be the return of principals, deputy principals, and supply chain management staff. 1st of June, center managers return. 8th of June, all lecturers return. 17th of June, for students registered for General Education Training Certificate, as well as the Senior Certificate, as well as National Occupational Certificates Qualification or Part Qualifications. Let me reread this. On the 17th of June will be returned for students registered for General Education Training Certificate, Senior Certificate, as well as National Occupational Certificates Qualifications or Part Qualifications. Also, the return of levels 1 to 3 of adult education and training students will be synchronized with the return of learners in the lower grades in the public schools. In the unfortunate event that some learning sites are located in districts and metros that remain on lockdown level 4, such learning sites shall be closed or they will remain closed. We're not going to open where there is level 4. We are still a district, or part of a district is still in level 4. The affected students registered for General Education and Training Certificate, Senior Certificate, National Occupational Certificates shall only get an opportunity to sit for exams in May-June 2021 to enable them to complete the 2020 academic year, all depending on the epidemiology of the virus. On SETAs, Sector Education and Training Authorities, SETAs are currently engaging the employers and skills development institutions, public and private, regarding the return of learners. We are all aware that under the risk-adjusted strategy, alert level 4, there are limited number of employees who can return to the workplaces. However, I would like to make a call to all employers, both in the public and private sectors, even during alert level 4, to turn their workplaces into training spaces. This also goes beyond this level. SETAs have also committed to prioritize skills development related to COVID-19 pandemic areas in support of the supply and demand of essential goods and services during COVID-19 period and beyond, with particular focus on the provision of opportunities for small enterprises and cooperatives. I'm pleased to say that a number of our SETAs, we have drawn them in now to support the training of cooperatives and small and medium enterprises to participate in the production of personal protective equipment, like masks. As a department and as a minister, I still do not understand why we should be getting masks from outside the country under ideal conditions, when these masks, we can be able to produce them in this country. Like I'm having this mask produced by learners, sponsored by the FPNM SETA. It's their product, this, which they've produced here in South Africa, because these would be opportunities for training, opportunities for job creation, even nabantu bakithi abangasebenzi bakwazi ukuthi bathunge ama-mask lawo. Bengikhuluma nenye insizwa yangakithi kaDambuza ukuthi hey, yini umehluko phakathi kwe-mask ne-Cooperhead? I-Cooperhead yona ngabe iyasebenza, cha kuthiwa ayisebenzi i-Cooperhead. Cooperhead ayisebenzi, bayazi ngikhuluma ngani abantu be-Cooperhead kusebenza i-mask. Sicela i-Cooperhead ngani zakwethu siyaxolisa. Now, on the commencement of infrastructure projects, one other important matter to highlight is the commencement of our infrastructure projects in our campuses. All our institutions are preparing for the resumption of construction activities upon gazetting of regulations permitting construction activities in the post-school education and training sector. Such activities will have to be done within the national health and safety protocols as governed by the disaster regulations. I must also highlight that as a department we are working closely and seamlessly with all education quality assurance bodies in South Africa to ensure that COVID-19 measures do not temper or affect the quality of qualifications offered by all our institutions. The measures have only affected the methodology of offering programs by institutions, not the quality of our qualifications. Also, we can't lower standards, as some are wanting to say, because of COVID. We want to help everyone, but we can't lower standards such that our students are carrying certificates that are not respected by anyone. We have to maintain standards. So that is why this thing of pass one, pass all has no place in our education system. We will seek to assist everybody to do well, but we can't have a pass one, pass all. We need to say that up front, and there are no negotiations about that. Now, the last matter that I would like to talk about, because I'm also minister responsible for science and innovation, is South Africa-Madagascar collaboration. Funa ukuthinta le ndaba yomhlonyane kancane ukuze siyicacise emphakathini izwakala. As the Department of Science and Innovation, we have a bilateral agreement with the Madagascar Science and Technology Department, ozakwethu. Specific areas of collaboration include indigenous knowledge systems, particularly traditional medicines research. Our Council for Scientific and Industrial Research has signed a program of action with the Malagasy Institute of Applied Research. Sithi-ke sizobambisana nabase-Madagascar ngolwazi isikhathi esiningi oluye liqhamuke kuyinyanga zakithi nabanye abantu bakithi abazikhambi, ngoba silifuna yonke indawo ikhambi, kodwa kufanele senze isiqiniseko ukuthi kulokubambisana kwethu siyakwazi phela ukuthi silibhekisise ukuthi leli khambi liyilo yini, lingasenzeli umhlola esingawazi sithi siyalapha kanti sisidala inkinga ezifweni. Now, following Madagascar's presidential launch of an Artemisia annua product, COVID Organics, the country was advised to seek independent evaluation of the product. As a department, we are willing to partner with Madagascar. We have already been in touch with the Madagascan through our own science councils within the context of the World Health Organization guidelines for evaluation of traditional medicines. Kusho ukuthi siyasizana nabo ukuze kugcineni sazi ukuthi leli khambi lomhlonyana beza nawo ngabe ngempela uyakwazi ukusebenza noma cha. This will include necessary advice on non-disclosure agreements and all related intellectual property rights requirements, which must be cleared up front, sharing of relevant data, conducting all necessary tests on safety, efficacy, and quality. For the South African team to provide this essential service on the African continent, it is critical for both the Department of Science and Innovation and Department of Health leadership to request for the official reference centers for African medicine status from the World Health Organization. In the spirit of Agenda 2063, Africa must leverage its indigenous knowledge, biodiversity, and innovation know-how for building its manufacturing capacity. Before I close, I want to emphasize one very important matter. Not emphasizing this in the end because it's the least important, but I wanted to say it after having said all this. Students with disability are a priority in all these levels and in all these considerations. We must make sure no student with disability is left behind because of his or her disability. That is a firm commitment from our department as part of this government's commitment to help those with disability. Let me end by saying I would like to take this opportunity to once more thank all of our stakeholders who have been participating and also have been part of the consultative processes. There is general agreement and understanding from all our key stakeholders around these things that we're announcing here today. It's not just things that we sucked out of our thumbs. Once more, special gratitude to the President, my cabinet colleagues, senior officials of both my departments, by the way, and all those who have been participating in this. With your permission and patience, Ishmael, I'm not taking over your job. I've got enough of my own troubles. Sizocela kodwa ukuthi laba bezempilo esisebenza nabo beze la bazobeka ngeimfishane nishaye ngeimfishane ngani zakwethu ngoba sifuna ukuthi abafuna ukubuza imibuzo nokuthi bacaciseleke bakwazi ukulithola leli thuba sisatshele kwelesikhathi sasemoyeni. Thank you very much.